Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Blue Flame Ghost. The story goes that in the 1930s, a woman lived in Ohio's Sugar Grove. She was young, happy, and liked by everyone. She fell for a young man who had a terrible temper, and the couple were often seen arguing in the town. Over time, the locals noticed her changing. She never smiled anymore and began to grow cold and weary. One night, the couple were parked beside a bridge when, naturally, an argument broke out. This time, it was worse than usual though. In a fit of anger, the young woman pulled out a knife and stabbed her fiance's throat. She kept slashing until his head came off. She herself was bleeding from the struggle. She staggered out of the car and back down the hill, carrying her fiance's head. She eventually collapsed and died at the bottom of the hill, where she was found by locals the next day. Since then, the old bridge has been replaced by a new concrete one. However, some still say that on certain nights, if you stand on the bridge and call out the woman's name, her glowing blue spirit will appear at the top of the hill and move towards you. What you do at that point is honestly up to you, but given the vengeful state in which she died, most people don't stick around. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Defiance Werewolf. This is a very famous one. The people of Defiance in Ohio have claimed that for the past 45 years or so, they've been terrorized by a werewolf. It was first sighted in 1972. Over the summer, there were many sightings of a rampaging, hair-covered beast on 2 legs. It was said to have a muzzle and was always covered in rags. The local media went into a frenzy, and even the police opened up a case file on the sightings. There have been many sightings since then. Many of them were around a series of old railroad tracks in the town, usually late at night. One of the first sightings was by a Mr. Davis. Now he said, "I was connecting an air hose between 2 cars and was looking down. I saw these huge hairy feet. Then I looked up and he was standing there with that big stick over his shoulder. When I started to say something, he took off for the woods." His friend Mr. Jones was with him at the time. He said, "At first I thought the whole thing was a big joke. But when I saw how hairy and woolly it was, that was enough for me." Next up at number 8 now, we have Brubaker Bridge. According to legend, in the 1930s there was a brutal 1-car accident on this bridge over Sam's Run Creek, Butler County. The bridge is in a very rural area and nobody actually discovered the crash victims until later that night when a local farmer passed by. The farmer went to get help and a total of 12 bodies were recovered. They were eventually identified and given proper burials. That wasn't the end of things though. Shortly after, the farmer who originally discovered the bodies claimed that while crossing the bridge one night after, his car suddenly cut out. He said that he heard 13 knocks on his car, then a hissing noise before suddenly the car just came back to life. Locals say that this is the spirit of the 13th victim, whose body was never recovered. The spirit is still said to haunt those who pass over the bridge, hoping they will be the ones to finally find its body and give them a proper burial so that they may pass on peacefully. Next up at number 7 now, we have Stony Creek Cemetery. The story goes like this. In 1825, the local caretaker in Stony Creek Cemetery in Adams County made a discovery. At the bottom of a large tree was the body of a young man. It didn't take much to figure out the cause of death, as the man's head was completely missing. Although it's hard to beat that in terms of strangeness, there was one other thing. The crime scene was clean of any blood around this headless body. The police determined the murder must have taken place somewhere else before the perpetrator then dumped the body in the cemetery. Rumours began to spread that the head had not been cut off but rather ripped off by something extremely powerful. The case remained open and unsolved for many years before entering books of folklore. There are those that say that some nights a misty figure appears under a tree in the cemetery, the ghost of this unidentified man, unable to find peace until his murder is solved. Moving on to number 6 now guys, we have Patterson Tower. There are a number of theories about the origin of this strange tower, thought to be built by a John D. Patterson many years ago. According to legend, a group of teenagers in the 1960s took refuge in the tower during a thunderstorm. As the storm raged on, a lightning bolt hit the top of the tower. Electricity surged down the metal stair rail and electrocuted 2 of the teenagers, killing them almost instantly. They say that in the weeks afterwards, you could still see their charred outlines on the tower wall. Officials blocked off the tower from dark tourists by placing metal plates across the door. Visitors still just ripped them off though to see what was inside. Legend now says that on stormy nights, the shadowy spirits of the teenagers who died can be seen in the tower. A bright bolt of lightning will illuminate their ghosts, making them glow as if they had just been hit by lightning. When the storm fades, so do they. until the next time. Coming in at number 5 now, we have Little Sugar Creek. The town of Bellbrook is sometimes referred to as Ohio's Sleepy Hollow because of all the ghostly legends that originated there. A man called James Buckley ran a sawmill there many years ago. He lived in a small cabin and grew his business to great heights, becoming the wealthiest man in the town. One night, his newfound wealth attracted some robbers. When authorities finally arrived to help him, they found Buckley's headless body outside. The murder was never solved. People say the cabin was haunted then by his spirit. Those who ventured there say they've been confronted by a headless ghost, his arms outstretched as if begging for help. In time, the sawmill was demolished, but that didn't bring an end to the sightings. Locals still say that if you wander down to Little Sugar Creek, where the sawmill once stood, you can still see the ghost of James Buckley, unable to pass on peacefully while the case of his brutal murder has been left cold. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Otterbein Cemetery. This one is also known as Bloody Horseshoe Grave. During the 1840s, an Ohioan called James Henry was involved with 2 women at the same time, Rachel Hodge and Mary Angle. He wanted to know which one to marry. One night while riding home, he fell asleep on his horse. He awoke to find his horse had not taken him home, but had instead stopped in front of Mary Angle's house. He took this as a sign, and soon he and Mary were married. As his wedding gift to her, he gave her the horse that brought them together. They lived happily, but in 1845, Mary died from one of the many prevalent diseases at the time. She was buried in Otterbein Cemetery. Henry began courting Rachel Hodge, and eventually the two were married. He gave her the same horse as a wedding gift. They hadn't been married long before locals noticed something strange about Mary's tombstone. There was a glowing outline of a horseshoe on it. James took this as a sign that Mary was displeased with his new marriage. They said he was cursed. One night, witnesses heard strange noises and lights coming from the cemetery. The next morning, James was found dead in his barn with the mark of a horseshoe on his forehead. His death was ruled an accident, as Henry had been alone in the barn at the time, all alone except for one other creature, a horse. Even today, they say a strange horseshoe mark is still visible on Mary's tombstone, and that on some nights you can hear the sound of hooves trotting up the cemetery road. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Buxton Inn. This place has been going since 1812, making it one of the oldest inns in Ohio. In the mid-1800s, Major Buxton, after whom the inn was named, took control of the inn. There have been reports of ghosts there ever since. Many of the ghosts alleged to haunt the inn are said to be of previous owners. However, there's also strange knockings people have heard coming from the basement where the stagecoach drivers would have stayed. The door to that same basement is known to open and close by itself, and there have even been reports of footsteps coming up and down the stairs there. Major Buxton's spirit is said to be a shadowy figure, often sighted in the dining room. Another owner, Orrin Granger, appears as an elderly woman wearing old-fashioned breeches who is said to steal pies from the kitchen. There's also the lady in blue, who died in the inn and is recognizable by her distinct perfume. There's even a phantom cat that enters people's rooms at night in much the same way it did when it was alive. Next up at number 2 now, we have Old Raritan. The story goes that as European settlers first began to arrive in the Ohio Valley, wolf attacks on livestock became more and more frequent. Farmers began to hunt down the wolves, possibly to the point of extinction, but none of them could have predicted what came next. One wolf in particular always managed to escape the farmers. A huge grey one became known as Old Raritan. Farmers often reported seeing him and his mate wandering through the woods, but they never could corner him. Eventually, they became the only wolves that remained. One night, the wolves were trapped with their backs against Big Rock, a famous landmark. The hunters opened fire and brought the female down. Just as the hunters set their dogs loose to finish her off, a loud cry echoed through the woods. Old Raritan leapt in front and fought the dogs off. The hunters opened fire and wounded him too. Eventually, they called off their dogs. Old Raritan dragged his now dead mate up to the top of Big Rock. Once there, he let out a thunderous howl across the backdrop of the moon and then slumped down beside his mate. All was quiet, but not forever. On certain nights, locals say you can still hear a painful howl, and that if you head to the top of Big Rock, you'll be faced with the ghost of Old Raritan, still ready to fight in his afterlife. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Bloody Bridge. Sometimes you can just tell from these titles where these stories are heading. This bridge lies just outside of Spencerville, crossing the Miami-Erie Canal. According According to legend, the bridge was the site of a grisly murder in 1854. In the years before that, a rivalry grew between two local men, Bill Jones and Jack Billings. Both had fallen for a woman called Minnie Warren. In the end, Minnie chose Jack, sending Bill into a fit of rage. One night in 1854, Minnie and Jack began to cross the bridge on their way home from a party. At the other end though stood Bill. He was holding an axe. They didn't have time to run. Bill took one swing and severed Jack's head clean off. Minnie screamed and jumped off the bridge and into her watery grave. Bill then disappeared until his skeleton was found years later in a well. Was it suicide or revenge from the couple's family? Either way, the years since then have seen reports of ghostly images of the murdered couple on the bridge. Some even say that when the water gets dark enough, you can look over the bridge and see Minnie Warren's face staring right back at you in horror.
Coming in at number 9, we have the Candy Lady. Who loves candy? I love candy. Get me a dip and dab and a strawberry lace. Although we have to say the Candy Lady of Texas is enough to make me give up caramels for life, which is a shame because caramel's such a dream. So the Candy Lady is said to have been a woman called Clara Crane. She lived in Texas around the turn of the 20th century. She was said to have been married to an older man, and the pair had a child called Marcella. Sadly, Marcella was killed in a freak accident, and Clara blamed her husband and then went mad, reportedly killing him with poisoned caramel. She was then taken to North Texas Lunatic Asylum but released a few years later. This is when candy started showing up on windowsills, luring in kids. Later, a number of kids across the state went missing, and one farmer was said to have found rotten children's teeth in a caramel wrapper on his land. The urban legend goes that the Candy Lady will start by leaving a kid candy to win their trust. Then she'll abduct them and stab them with a fork. I shouldn't laugh, but forks are kind of like the comedy side of utensils, right? From Candy Lady to Donkey Lady at number 8. Donkey Lady, now I've heard it all. Apparently ye olde Donkey Lady haunts a bridge over Elm Creek in San Antonio, Texas. The origin story of the ghost dates back almost 200 years to the mid-1800s. When settlers were living on the banks of Elm Creek, a husband and wife had a small wooden farmhouse and were making a living with a small number of livestock. One day, one of their donkeys or mules was grazing in the area when a young man from the town came across it. This man was not a nice man, but he was a wealthy man. He was the son of an important town leader. The young man teased the donkey and hit it with a stick, to which the donkey fairly responded by biting him. I'd bite someone if they hit me with a stick too. Retaliating, the man started heavily beating the donkey. Hearing their mule being attacked, the couple emerged and told the man to get away, throwing rocks at him for hurting their valuable animal. The man had a bit of Prince Joffrey entitlement moment, and he screamed that his father would hear about this, and to be honest, hear about it he did. He brought a bunch of friends to the farmhouse to torch the place. When the husband intervened, he was shot, as were his sons. The wife's dress caught fire and she helplessly watched her loved ones die. As she was engulfed in flames, she screamed running down the road. She began to burn as she threw herself into the creek. Her body was never found, but her wails are said to still be heard along the stretch of the road. If a car stops for too long, it is said that she appears screaming with her arms outstretched on the bridge. Some even report a body falling on the bonnet of the car, but when they stop, there's nothing there. Coming into number 6, we have the White Lady of Rio Frio. So the Frio River is a beautiful spot near Rio Frio in Texas. On a summer's day, you may see picnickers hanging out by the water enjoying the weather, but some say they've had a far spookier experience. Many people that visit the Frio River have reported a strange white mist hovering over the water. Some say it's a strange microclimate, but others cite the story of the Lady of Frio. The story goes that back in the 1900s, a young girl called Maria Juarez was the prettiest girl in the canyon. She was young and had an elder sister whom she loved deeply. Her sister had children with a man called Gregorio, who unfortunately cared more about Maria than a sister-in-law. Maria helped raise her sister's children and dreamed that someday she would meet someone, marry them, and have kids of her very own. She thought all of her dreams had come true when she met Anselmo, a dashing young man who seemed to return her affections. Sadly, this angered Gregorio, who told Maria that he loved her and wanted to be with her. When she rebuffed him because of her sister and Anselmo, he shot her through the heart by the lake. Now her spirit is said to haunt the spot to this day. Adding a level of legitimacy to the story, there is an unmarked grave in a Frio cemetery said to belong to Maria, the White Lady who died an unmarried virgin. Coming into number 5, we have El Muerto. The El Muerto tale is truly terrifying. Back during the gold rush era, people thought that there was gold to be found in Texas. On top of that, the USA-Mexico border was hotly contested around this area, with an area of no man's land between the two countries. In this area, bandits were rife and Texas Rangers were around to keep them in check. One ranger, William Bigfoot Wallace, wanted to teach the bandits a lesson after one persistent criminal, known simply as Vidal, stole a bunch of Mustang horses. When he was in court, Bigfoot Wallace and his ranger friends chopped off Vidal's head, sat his body on a horse, attached his hands to the reins, and strung his head to the saddle. This was supposed to teach other would-be bandits a lesson not to mess with the Texas Rangers. Some poor sod then had to deal with finding the horse and its deceased cargo, which would be absolutely awful. Despite eventually being taken down from the horse, legend has it that Vidal rides on through the Rio Grande area today, and his ghost is dubbed as El Muerto. Coming into number 4, we have the Dancing Devil of El Cameroncito. A dancing Texas urban legend. I am so down for this. Apparently the dancing devil is local only to El Cameroncito, so ladies of other towns, no worries if a man is asking you to dance, you're probably safe. Ladies in Cameroncito though, watch out. So basically a legend has it that in the 1970s, a man in a dapper suit would ask beautiful ladies to dance with him. While they didn't find him beautiful, they felt compelled to dance. As he danced, women would be swept up. One day, a woman noticed the man she was dancing with had hooves for feet and that everyone near them was staring in horror. Realizing she was dancing with the devil, she ran away. The devil, however, remained. Now I always keep my demons in my dancing shoes. Coming into number 3, we have Goatman. Goatman, 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 Goatman. Fun to say, fun to talk about. There are a couple of legends surrounding the Goatman of Old Alton Bridge in Denton County. The bridge is locally dubbed Goatman's Bridge, and some say that is because there is a goat-like demon that haunts the nearby forest. But others turn to a more elaborate tale of a local goat farmer. Oscar Washburn was a black goat farmer who was known for being an honest businessman, and he was a well-liked member of the community. Unfortunately, a successful black man caught the attention of the KKK, who was said to have abducted him in August 1938. Reportedly, they tied a noose around his neck and threw him over the Old Alton Bridge into the river below. When they went to bring up his body, they found that the noose was empty. Frustrated, the clan went to his house and slaughtered his wife and children. Washburn's body was never found, but a lot of paranormal enthusiasts will tell you that if you drive out over the bridge at night without your headlights on, the old goat man will be standing on the other side to greet you. Some also report being touched or grabbed by a spirit, and others say there are weird flashing lights in the nearby forest. Coming into number 2, we have the ghost of Fort Phantom Hill. Fort Phantom is one of the most well-preserved historic sites in Texas, with original architecture dating back to the mid-1850s. Fort Phantom was built as a safe stop for immigrants headed to the Californian gold fields. The story behind the name of Phantom Hill seems to be twofold. On the one hand, the fort is said to look really high up on a plateau from afar, but when you get close, it looks level, so it disappears like a phantom. The other story is that one night while a sentry was keeping watch, he fired on a Native American who was on the hill. When he went to go and investigate, he didn't find a body. When the team at the whole fort went out to look for a band of natives, they couldn't find any evidence of them ever being nearby. This ghost on the hill is said to re-emerge every now and then, confusing those who watch from the garrison. Finally, coming into number 1, we have one of the most well-known Texas urban legends ever. We have the Houston Batman. So first I was like, Batman? Hell yes, get me there. But then I delved further into this legend and I realized that they don't mean like the superhero. No, no, no. The Houston Batman is also known as the Houston Horror and is a winged creature that has regularly been sighted in Houston, Texas. Now this creature is a bit like the Mothman of the Mothman prophecies, and I don't like a big moth. The story of the winged menace dates back to 1953 when a woman and her neighbors were sitting on their porch in East 3rd Street, Houston. 23-year-old housewife Hilda Walker said she looked up over the lawn and saw the shadow of a huge moth. When she looked up, she saw something huge then fly into a pecan tree. Her and her neighbors thought that the monster was around 6.5 feet tall, although they weren't totally sure what they'd seen. 14-year-old Judy Mayer, who was also sat on the porch, screamed in fear as she got a square-on look at the monster. He was described as a man, but with wings, huge wings, and a weird, strange yellow haze around him. Mrs. Walker reported the incident to the police and spoke to local news outlets. The Batman/Mothman may have been spotted once again by Houston Bel Air theatre workers in the 1990s, and the legend lives on today. Some suspect a government cover-up is at play, as vigilantes seeking the Batman discovered that some years after the initial incident, Mrs. Walker's neighborhood was razed to make way for a new part of the interstate. Alright, coming in at number 10, we have Lechuza. Ooh, Ooh, I love a good owl, but this one is not your average mouse catcher. Lechuza is a shape-shifting witch who flies through the night hunting for prey. While in flight, she may look like an owl. When a lechuza is stopped, they have bird bodies and human faces, so basically a lot like a harpy. The women seem to be hybrid monsters, as in their human lives they were said to have sold their soul to the devil, who gave them intense magical powers in exchange for their souls. How do you know you're in the presence of a lechuza? Well, they'll let you know by a series of whistling and baby noises. Those who try and investigate what the noises are will likely become dinner for the owly she-witches. Not great. Coming in at number 9, we have the Chupacabra. Ah, the legend of the Chupacabra. This one isn't constricted to Texas alone. The Chupacabra story first sprang up in Puerto Rico. It is said to be a blood-sucking monster from the deep that attacks animals and drinks the blood of livestock, especially goats, which is why the creature's name translates to goat sucker in Spanish. Anyway, in Texas, reports of the Chupacabra were rife in the year 2007 when a woman named Phyllis Canyon reported seeing one of the blood-sucking monsters at her ranch in South Texas. She also reportedly found a number of chickens with their throats torn open. This sparked a whole Chupacabra panic, and the legend of the beast was firmly consolidated in the Lone Star State law. Coming into number 8, we have the Chinese cemetery. There is a strange urban legend surrounding a 7-foot-tall ghost and her lover at the Lona China Cemetery in Texas. This isn't just your classic ghost haunting in a graveyard, except actually I guess it is, only there's a freakishly tall ghost. The story goes that a man wanted to run away with his lover of Chinese descent, but he was forbade by his great-grandfather who owned the cemetery. The issue here was an issue of race. The man was Anglo-Hispanic, but his granddie didn't want him mixing. I bet that old racist isn't pleased that the cemetery is now called the Chinese cemetery. Hey. Anyway, both the ghost of the tall woman and the man are said to roam the cemetery at night looking for one another, but sadly they never quite meet, which is pretty depressing. Apparently the female has been known to reach out and touch you, thinking that you might be the lost love. Sends shivers up my spine. Ooh. Coming in at number 7, we have the legend of Midget Mansion. Not the most politically correct name, but it seems that Midget Mansion is the name this urban legend is best known by in San Antonio. It seems that the house in question is a mansion with low-hanging fixtures and ceilings custom built for a family of small people. A husband and a wife and their normal-sized children took up residence in this home. The father was said to be a respected businessman in the 1920s and was well liked in the community, who found him to be a novel addition. It seems sadly the man went mad one day and murdered his entire family. What with the murders and the odd size of the home, nobody really wanted to buy it, so it fell into disrepair. It seems that the ghostly sounds emanating from the building and strange shadows lurked for many years. A lot of people who went to the abandoned house felt a malicious presence. From my research, it seems that the old house has finally been pulled down in favour of condos. However, the ghostly presence, the trauma of the family left behind, is apparently still rife in folklore. Coming into number 6, we have El Cucuy. Am I saying this right, Texas? Let me know, cause I'm just a humble British gal who has no idea really. So these urban legends come around so much, I honestly feel like in every country and within that a lot of provinces and states have their own version. El Cucuy is a Texan bogeyman, but worse apparently. Now the legend describes the beast as male, small, humanoid with glowing red eyes. El Cucuy hides in closets and under beds and comes for naughty children in the night. While this does seem like your classic boogeyman stuff, it seems that there have been some reported sightings of El Cucuy over the years. Now this leads me to think that actually maybe there is something more to this urban legend after all. Coming into number 3, we have Demon's Road. It just isn't an urban legend video without a spooky haunted road, is it? No. It's not. In Huntsville, Texas, there is a stretch of road called Bowden Road, although locals will tell you that it's called Demon's Road. Why? Well, because of the demonic things that have reportedly happened along it. Oh, and there's a cemetery at the end of the road, which doesn't really help matters. A whole bunch of Huntsville residents have had weird experiences along the road or seen strange things, but this isn't just your average haunted road. It seems that oftentimes spectres will follow people home. One popular story associated with Demon's Road is that a woman was visiting the cemetery at the end of the road when she saw a man lurking. Now, the man was acting a bit weirdly, he was pacing up and down, but she didn't pay him much attention. After that, as she was journeying home, she thought she saw the same man walking on the road, but once again, she just ignored it. When she got home, however, she thought she saw the same man staring at her from her bathroom mirror while she was in the shower. She screamed, he disappeared, and she never saw him again. Creepy.
Number 8. Theater center. This would make horror movies so much better. I imagine you get to watch a movie about ghosts in a place that's actually haunted by ghosts. Amazing. The theater center is apparently haunted by the ghost of an usher. The usher was killed in the theater by a jealous boyfriend when he was stabbed. On the bright side, this would mean you would get free movies for eternity. I mean, there's way worse places you could die. Imagine if you died in a paint store and then you had to haunt this place for the rest of time. The most exciting part of your day would be when they bring in the new fall colors. Wow, there's 11 shades of brown. Exciting. Number 7. Civil War ghost. I guess the benefits of being a ghost after a war is you get to see how everything happened. You're either like, I can't believe what the world has come to, or you're like, man, I was really the bad guy this whole time. Over on the Thompson Island Bridge in San Marcos, Texas, a Civil War ghost is taken post and he will never leave. The backstory on this ghoulie is he pops up whenever a war is happening. So for America, that means this guy's working overtime. Also, it's said he can't leave because he made a promise to his brother that he'll make it home alive no matter what. I think it's time this guy took an L and just moved on to the afterlife. Number 5. Marfa Lights. We're jetting over to the little town of Marfa, Texas. In this little old country town, there's some pretty weird happenings appearing right in the sky. The Marfa Lights are these balls of light that appear out of nowhere, like someone floating in midair is lighting off an M80. There has been so much speculation on what it could be. Some people think it's spirits floating around doing a little dance for the people watching. Just because you're dead doesn't mean you don't want attention. Other people think that it could be aliens. They think that they travel between this spot in Marfa and wherever these aliens have come from. They can use this spot to take samples of the earth, like a little school trip. But scientists have said that it's just balls of gas lighting up in the air. Boring scientists always ruining our fun. But hey, there's still hope that they're just trying to cover up some actual alien activity. Number 2. Bigfoot. Yes, I know Bigfoot was originally spotted in North Carolina, but there have been many sightings of the possible missing link in the Lone Star State. I mean, if you're a Bigfoot, I can't imagine you believe in borders. You just kind of go anywhere you please whenever you want and try to not get shot and make sure you're always out of focus. Although I do think that Texas would be one of the worst places for a Bigfoot to travel. They're covered in hair and Texas is almost always hot. There's cowboys and trackers all over the place who would probably love to hunt you down, and there's so many guns. I would definitely put Bigfoot on the list of things that are totally fine to shoot on sight. But the old ape man is really popular in Texas. There's even a group in Beeville called the Bee County Bigfoot Research Group that is dedicated to finding out the truth about Bigfoot. I wonder if they get paid for that, if they just do it out of the goodness of their hearts. At number 8 we have the Sons of Herman Hall. This old hall is a nice place to have a low-key wedding or throw one of those hall parties. Are those still a thing? They were cool when I was in high school. I'm not cool anymore. But if you choose to have any sort of event at this hall, you're going to have plenty of unexpected guests. There have been tons of apparitions that have shown up while people are still partying in the building. People have seen couples dancing together, kids playing, and all sorts of scary ghostly things. But the ghosts always seem like they're having a great time. Many of the ghosts are dressed in their Sunday best, like they're heading to a big event. If you're going to be a ghost crashing a wedding, you can at least dress like you're supposed to be there. That's a very nice thing for them to do. I wonder who would be the last one dancing. It would be pretty hard to out-samba someone who doesn't have a heartbeat. At number 7 we have the Adolphus Hotel. You know, I think if a big expensive hotel has a ghost inside it, it almost makes it more fancy. You know, I think if a big expensive hotel has a ghost inside it, it's almost more fancy. The owners are like, yeah, this hotel is so nice, people want to spend eternity here. If you agree with this idea, then the Adolphus Hotel must be one of the fanciest hotels in all of America because it is super haunted. The most famous ghost is that of a woman in white, the ghost of a bride who never made it to the altar. Her ghost has been seen all over the hotel, but mainly on the 19th floor. She tends to stick to number 19 because that's the floor where she took her own life on the day of her wedding. She hung herself in one of the rooms. Not only can you see the well-dressed ghost floating around, but you can also hear her. Some people have reported the sounds of a crying woman from empty rooms. On top of the deceased bride-to-be, there are some other ghosts who will walk around the hotel whispering in people's ears, and even one that plays the piano in the ballroom. At number 6 we have Flagpole Hill. If you want to visit this place, you better have car insurance because your car is going to get bashed up. Flagpole Hill seems like a place where you could just display your patriotism and then go home. But that's not the case. There's a bunch of ghosts there who want to ruin your expression of loyalty because the punk phantoms will start throwing rocks at your car. People have reported rocks being thrown at their car when no one is standing there. Like, dude, I just got this sunfire. Like, are you kidding me? You know what this baby means to me? It's crimson red. Crimson red sunfire. So maybe if you go to Dallas, you can show your American pride by going to the Cowboys game and skip the jerk-offs who throw stones at your car. Some people think that the ghost comes from a nearby house where a man committed suicide. At number 5 we have the Grandad Theater, an old closed down theater. Of course this place has some ghosts kicking around inside it. There have been loads of reports coming from this place. The most famous is about how the door to the projector room opens and closes on its own. It's not like that haunted door from the Los Angeles Urban Legends list that would crush people to death. That's probably my favorite haunted door of all time. But this one is still pretty creepy. Now, where have these ghosts come from? Well, apparently the whole place was built on an Indian burial ground, which seems like an old trope. I don't even know if I believe this one. But I'm here to bring you guys what I have learned, so it's up to you to decide whether or not you believe it. At number 4 we have Mary of the Comb Creek Trail. What are the top 3 things that make ghosts? Brides who die on their wedding day, people who fall victim to some sort of horrible curse or accident, and of course children. I would say child ghosts are some of the most creepy. I think their little hands are all still sticky in the afterlife. Well, the sticky-handed ghost of a young girl named Mary haunts the Comb Creek Trail. If you're walking or driving down the trail, you might see her ghost standing by, watching you as you pass. There have been a few photos of the spirit and it seems like she's not alone. In most of the photographic evidence, you can see what looks like to be some sort of entity standing behind her. Could this other phantom be the reason that Mary went missing? Maybe this monster grabbed her and took her to the other side. Or maybe she was kidnapped and her kidnapper died alongside her. Who knows? And for the number 1 spot, we have the LBJ house. So we've had dead brides, hotels with ghosts, possibly cheating husbands, monsters, and ladies of the lake. Let's get into the real nitty-gritty of Dallas. The LBJ house is a long-standing home that everyone refuses to live in. Why? Well, there's a bunch of ghosts in there, you dingus. And now how did all those ghosts get in there? Well, I'm gonna tell you that. Slow down, alley cat. Because a man came in and murdered his whole family with a butcher knife and then hung himself. Whoa, you could say,
boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now the place has an evil attached to it. I mean, for good reason. A dude butchered his whole family in cold blood. If you do something like that, it doesn't tend to bring in the good vibes. Now if you go into the house, you can see blood splashes appear on the walls and an overall feeling of doom in your heart. That sounds like a bad time. Coming in at number 10, we have Men in Black. I mean, where do you think the idea of the smash hit comedy starring Will Smith came from? You thought it was an original idea?
Yo, I thought it was an original idea. I thought Will Smith is a genius.
No way, man.
Well, let's be honest, nothing is original anymore. As Picasso said, a good artist creates things, a great artist steals everything.
I'm pretty sure that he actually stole that line too. Well, the urban legend of the Men in Black is pretty in line with the movie. I don't think it's as fantastical or as heroic, but the idea is that there are secret government agents all throughout the US who will come find you if you have any sort of contact with extraterrestrials.
They monitor the planet and it's up to them to make sure that they don't learn about aliens.
There have been many reports from people saying that they've seen some strange thing in the sky or that something landed in their backyard and then it takes off, and then the next day a couple dudes in black suits come in who present themselves as FBI agents, and they'll come to their house and ask them some very strange questions. And even in some cases they can be threatened or things could get quite ugly.
Well, threats from strange dudes in a black suit, yeah, that would work well for me. I'm threatened by anything. I'll keep all my alien secrets to myself after something like that. Thank you very much. If I see something in my backyard, I'm reporting it to nobody.
And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming in number 8, we have skinwalkers. This is one of the oldest Native American legends, and the legend has stretched into our folklore as we see skinwalkers represented in television and movies all the time.
The true form of a skinwalker is unknown. I mean, Che right here could be a skinwalker right now. We don't know his true form. Well, some people say that they start off as humans and then they get the ability to transform transform, and others say they are truly beasts who can turn into humans and other creatures to try to fool us.
But at the end of the day, does it really matter what the true form of a shapeshifter is? They can become whatever they want. You think after being a certain form for a while, you would forget what it's like to be your true self. It would be like method acting when you get too into a role and you can't remember who you really are.
Well, maybe Daniel Day-Lewis is a skinwalker and he's just not as evil as the rest.
Skinwalkers have been known to use their powers of transformation to lure people into traps and kill them. Sometimes it's said that they can use parts of dead humans as food, and other stories tell of them needing human parts for rituals to continue their shape-shifting ways. Coming in at number 6, we have the Bunny Man. There are several different stories of the Bunny Man, and almost all of them are gruesome. The most common is that he's a man who will walk through dark alleys or in the forest or anywhere with poor visibility, and he will follow people. He sports a bunny mask and has a massive axe. In the shadows, he creeps slowly, watches his prey, and waiting for the moment when they aren't protected. In those few moments when their guard is lowered, he will spring out and slam his axe into their face, taking their body back into the darkness. There have been some iterations of the Bunny Man that say he doesn't wear a mask, but his face has been horribly mutilated to make it look as if it was a bunny's. Skin has been grafted onto his head to resemble ears, surgery done on his nose and lips to reveal buck teeth and a rabbit-like nose, and disgusting scarring all over his once human image. This disfiguration that happened to him is what caused him to go mad.
And at number 4, we have Baby Train. Well, let's step away from the horrifying urban legends for a second to think about something that could be true and has been a tale told all over America.
Even though the Baby Train sounds like something where people would sell babies to the highest bidder, this urban legend is much more wholesome.
Now, this urban legend is attached to a more forgotten time, which makes it both hard to prove and disprove.
But it's the idea of small towns that were positioned close to train stations.
These towns were so close that when the trains came in and blew its steam whistle, everyone could hear.
Now, for some of these places, they would have an early morning train come through town. If it would blow its whistle around 5 a.m., this would wake up the whole town. For most of these fine folks, 5 a.m. was too early to get up, but too late to go back to sleep.
So all of these people waking up next to their partner decided to just make a little hanky-panky.
This was a time before we had phones and Netflix. There was nothing else to do.
So this idea of this urban legend is that the towns that had the baby train would see a baby boom from all of the early morning, whoopies.
These people are reproducing faster than Joey Chestnut clears a plate of food. Coming in number 2, we have Charman. We get a couple sweet points in a row, and that's the only nice ones you're gonna get.
For a second I thought you were gonna say Charmander, because I was like, that's real. Pokemon are real.
They are.
But in this situation we're talking about Charman, which isn't Charmander. Well, Charman is one of the most horrifying urban legends to come out of America. It combines some classic tales with some very specific details that make it seem like the whole thing could be true.
The story starts back in 1948. There was a house fire. A father and his son try to escape unharmed, but the flames are too strong and the two of them are burned all over their body. While waiting for help to arrive, the son is looking at his disfigured self and loses his mind. He then kills his own father.
Is this real life right now? When help eventually does arrive, the son lays on the ground and the police think that the boy, well, he's dead from how badly he's burnt. They leave for a moment and uses this as an opportunity to escape.
From this point, he has to live in the woods, hunting down people and killing them, taking what he can so he can continue to survive in the wilderness and feed his insane bloodlust without anyone finding him.
Starting off with number 10, the Bloody Headstone. Riverside Cemetery in Appleton, Wisconsin has been a popular attraction site for those who seek a paranormal thrill, or for those who just wish to get haunted. Among the numerous graves in this cemetery, there is one in particular that gets ongoing attention. Kate Blood. Given the nickname Kitty Blood, she was a supposed child killer, witch, and adulteress. Now her ghost is said to roam the cemetery at night and haunt her gravesite. When people visit her secluded grave, they claim to have been pushed or touched by her ghost, and some have even seen her apparition. They also claim that the area around her grave is unusually warm, and that's from her presence lurking around. What is most unsettling is that on the night of a full moon, apparently blood can be seen seeping through her headstone. Honestly, I just feel sorry for the groundskeeper that has to continuously clean up that mess. That's terrible. Alright, making our way to number 9, the Jogging Woman on Vine Street. So,
I don't know what's scarier, thinking about going for a run or encountering a ghost that likes to run. Vine Street in Eau Claire is a nice, quiet, peaceful, haunted neighborhood. It is said that the ghost of a woman who was hit and killed by a drunk driver while jogging haunts this street. Her shadowy figure can be seen darting in front of cars, only to disappear right after. You know what? Running already haunts me as it is, so I can't imagine witnessing this as well. At number 8, we have dissected corpses. You know, I have never really been a fan of science or anatomy, but this next legend has me intrigued. The University of Wisconsin is presently known for their advanced research studies. However, there have been stories since the 80s of unethical studies that took place in the basement of the school. It is said that they would grave rob these bodies to dissect and conduct experiments on. The basement is now believed to be haunted by the spirits whose bodies were tampered with. Presently, the school does use cadavers to learn about the human body, however they do it with respect and it's only bodies that have been donated to the program. Moving on down to number 7, the Hitchhiker of Highway 12. First off, let me say that if you're one of those people that stop and pick up hitchhikers, what are you doing? You don't know their agenda. They could be a killer, or in this case, a ghost. Apparently along the road of Highway 12, people have claimed to see a scruffy man with a dark beard, long greasy black hair who is dressed in blue jeans and an army jacket. Those who see this man drive past him thinking nothing of it, only shocked when miles down the road they encounter the same guy. Those who are brave enough to stop and offer this man a ride find that he disappears without a trace when they approach him. No one knows why this ghostly man is here or why he is haunting the roadside. Next at number 6, we have the Bloody Bride Bridge. I think a lot of people's worst fear on their wedding day is having either their bride or groom get cold feet and not show up. Well, the Bloody Bride Bridge refers to the legend of a bride who got killed on the bridge while on her way to the wedding. It is now said that you can see this bride in her white dress lurking on the bridge at night. In fact, a police officer has witnessed this firsthand when he spotted her laying down on the bridge. He went to go call for an ambulance, but when he went back to her, she had mysteriously disappeared. It is also said that if you park your car near the bridge around midnight, the bride will appear in the backseat of your car. So, word from the wise, if you and your lover decide to get it on in your car, don't park near this bridge unless you want her in the backseat. We are now at our halfway point with number 5. Hogsback Road, Goatman. Here is another road I suggest you add to your list of places not to visit, and there's a good reason for it. Hogsback Road is said to be home of a strange monster that is half man and half goat. His upper body is that of a man with horns and sharp fingernails, while the lower half of his body is of a goat with reddish fur. It is said that this creature hunts for lost travelers to torment or kill. Apparently this creature was once a man who was killed along this road and is now a restless spirit. In fact, a woman named Mindy Rosette believes that her and her daughter had encountered Goatman. They were driving by this area when the creature ran in front of her car. This is how she described the creature. His legs seemed to be bent back, the knees like a dog's. His muscles were really defined, thighs especially. I couldn't make out the hands because of the way it was running. I couldn't see the feet as I couldn't see past the car hood. Instantly, I knew this was something incredible. In our number 4 spot, we have Boy Scouts Lane. Now, as the name suggests, Boy Scouts Lane may sound like the spot to go where Boy Scouts go to learn to tie knots, roast marshmallows, and do other things that Boy Scout related activities, I don't know. However, as you may have guessed, this is not the case. Boy Scouts Lane is an unpaved, secluded small trail that is said to be the place where a troop of Boy Scouts were murdered by their scout master. Other versions of the story state that it was the bus driver that murdered them all, or even that they just died in a bus crash. No matter what version of the story you may hear, it all centers around the theme of a group of Boy Scouts' tragic death. It is said that if you roam this path, you may feel as if you are being watched. Witnesses have said that they have seen the apparition of the scout master, and that child-sized handprints have appeared on their car. Honestly, if I'm gonna go encounter these ghosts, they can at least offer me some Boy Scout cookies, especially those Thin Mints. Those are my secret addiction, okay? Bringing it down to number 3, we have the Ridgeway Ghost. Here we go with another haunted road in Wisconsin. Are you shocked? I'm not. Along Route 151, there seems to be 2 shape-shifting spirits that haunt the area. This legend dates back to the 1840s and is said that a bar fight between 2 teen brothers and other men resulted in their tragic death. One of the brothers were torched and burned alive, while the other boy froze to death trying to escape these men. It is said that these ghosts have been seen as a headless horseman, a ball of fire, a man with a whip, or even as a big beast. Other people believe that these ghosts can shapeshift into animals such as pigs and dogs. This ghost could definitely play tricks on people. Like, imagine you're gonna go pet a cute dog and all of a sudden it turns into the headless horseman. Yeah. No thanks. Coming in second, we have the Rhinelander Hodag. Now, if you visit the town of Rhinelander, you are bound to encounter the Hodag creature, but not in the way you think. This town has numerous statues and paintings of the Hodag all throughout the town. The Hodag is a 265-pound creature with a frog's head, a dinosaur-looking body, short legs, and a long tail. The creature also has 2 large sharp fangs hanging out of its mouth and reddish glowing eyes. It is said that this creature is aware of its ugliness and spends a lot of time crying over it. I'm feeling slightly targeted here. Legend has it that one of these creatures were caught in the 1890s, however there are still more out there. It is also said that there are only 3 ways to kill it: chloroform, dynamite, and lemons. So if you ever plan to visit Rhinelander, make sure you bring the essentials: toothbrush, toothpaste, chloroform, dynamite, and lemons. I'm sure airport security will understand. And lastly, in our top spot, we have the Maribel Hotel. The Maribel Hotel was once a nice spa for travelers to enjoy, but is now known as Hotel Hell. Legend has it that one night a hotel guest ended up murdering all of the other guests in their sleep. From then on, the hotel has become haunted. The freakiest part about this hotel is that it has burned down 3 different times, but on the exact same day. When that happened, the guests perished in their sleep. It is said that the remains of some of these bodies can be found on the 3rd floor. However, it is now inaccessible from structure failure in the stairs. Still to this day, it is said that you can hear screaming from the basement. Well, now I know where to not stay if I make a trip to Wisconsin.
At number 10, we have the Maiden Cliff. If you have a wardrobe malfunction, you would expect it to embarrass you or maybe show off your butt crack a little bit. You don't expect to die and become a restless ghost for the rest of time. Well, the legend of the Maiden Cliff is that it's haunted by a ghost of a woman who met her end because her hat blew off her head. She was standing near the edge of the cliff for a photo, and then a huge gust of wind slapped her hat off her head and sent it flying away. But this hat cost good money, so she wasn't going to let Mother Nature try and steal it away from her. She tried to catch her hat, but she wasn't as quick and agile as she thought. She ended up losing her footing and falling all the way down to her death. Now, it's said that her ghost walks around the cliff and has been seen in photos that people have taken of the cliff. Ghosts always have unfinished business, and I definitely know that this ghost just wants its hat back. At number 9, we have Wessie. There was a monster spotted in a forest in Maine by several people who got the nickname Wessie. Someone reported to a policeman that there was a large snake-like monster eating what might have been a beaver. Everyone thought it was a joke at first, but when a couple more people came with the same story, the police decided to go investigate. Then it's reported that one police officer did come across what seemed to be a 12-foot long anaconda, but in Maine. These are massive snakes that are normally found in the Amazon. How did this creature make its way out there, and could it potentially attack a person? A crew of snake specialists went out in search of the snake to capture it and take it into a sanctuary, but the snake was never found. Maybe it was lost in the forest, maybe the unorthodox environment led to the snake's death, or maybe there was something supernatural happening and the long snake-like creature wasn't a snake at all, but something a little bit more spooky. At number 8, we have the circus ship. Did you know that this used to be a thing? They would have a circus on a boat, on the water, everything powered by steam. That sounds like the drunken dream of a guy from 1901. Well, it was a real thing. There was a circus ship that set sail in 1836 named the Royal Tar that was packed with animals. There was horses, camels, birds, and even an elephant on board. They were planning to have some crazy times on this boat, and they were putting on some pretty good shows for all the people on board. When the boat got off the coast of Maine, the weather took a turn for the worst and things started getting pretty brutal on board. The steam engine caught fire and the fire spread to the rest of the boat. They tried to save all the animals and every person on board, but they weren't able to. 32 people died on a circus boat that day, which sounds like something out of a Danny McBride script. Some people say that they can see the ghostly silhouette of the boat floating in the water on certain nights. At number 7, we have the ghost of an opera singer. I don't think you could create a more annoying ghost. The ghost of an opera singer seems like it would keep you up all night with a bunch of music you don't even know the words to. Like, if you're gonna haunt me, could you at least sing some top 40 so I could sing along or something? The University of Maine famously is haunted by the ghost of an opera singer that has an auditorium named after her. As we have already covered, ghosts haunt something when they have unfinished business. But what more do you want in life? You have a massive building named after you. What, you need to go for the Grammy now too? You had your chance when you were alive. Stop being so greedy. Go to bed. Let me sleep. But it's the ghost of Lillian Nordica. It said when you were walking through the auditorium, you can hear her singing some opera hits. At number 6, we have the Maine State Prison. Show me someone who says they found a prison that isn't haunted and I will show you a liar. I think that prisons come pre-haunted. It goes into the concrete or something. Like the way they make the building, they just feed it with ghosts. But the Maine State Prison fits the common theme of prisons that have ghosts walking through the halls like it's some sort of ghoul convention. There have been reports of people feeling cold spots, disembodied voices, footsteps, and some inmates have even seen a dark figure walking around the halls and then disappearing into walls. Ooh. This is the kicker. Remember how I said every prison is destined to be haunted? You can't have a prison function without some sort of spectral activity. Well, apparently some of the equipment that was brought over to the Maine State Prison before it opened was from another prison that was haunted, and the ghosts followed the equipment to the new location. It was just meant to be. At number 5, we have Bigfoot. If you're doing an urban legends list, you gotta throw this guy on. He just needs to be there. There have been Bigfoot sightings in Maine since 2012. People have seen the big ape man walking through the woods and have tried to snap some pictures of him, but as you all know, every time someone tries to take a picture of Bigfoot, they come out all blurry. But if we're really digging into the history of Bigfoot in Maine, it goes way back before 2012. The Native American tribes that used to call this area home have talked about a great ape man who would walk in the woods for nearly 1,000 years. So Bigfoot might have been hiding out there, we just haven't been able to find him. As the old joke says, Bigfoot is the ultimate hide and seek champion. At number 4, we have the piano ghost. Here's something I've learned about ghosts. They love to play the piano. It's so easy for them. They just have to push down and the music comes out. They suck at wind instruments. They lack the lung power. You'll never see a ghost killing it on the saxophone. That doesn't exist. But there's a ghost that has found its home in the Boothbay Opera House. There isn't a lot of information as to where this ghost might have come from. Some people think it could have been someone who had a heart attack while watching one of the performances in the opera house. But that's not the part that matters. What matters is if you head upstairs to the 2nd floor, you might see a piano play itself. Well, being played by a ghostly figure. I heard he takes requests though. For the number 3 spot, we have the Portland prostitute riots. Portland in Maine is a pretty quiet town, but there was a time when this place was filled with prostitutes and fires. Apparently back in the day, there was a bunch of brothels in the area, and some people loved it. They thought it was a great addition to the neighborhood, while other people saw it as a sinful stain on the area and wanted to get rid of it. People complained to the city, but it was 1825, so there was no laws against people selling their bodies for a little coin. So the town folk took it into their own hands. They went from brothel to brothel and started to tear them down one by one until they got fed up with the hard work of tearing down a brothel and decided just to burn them to the ground. Legend says that the prostitutes were horrified by seeing their place of business get destroyed, so they fought back and ended up killing a man. At number 2, we have the Maine Mist. Now, no one knows which came first, the urban legend about the Maine Mist or the story from Stephen King, but they kind of fit around the same idea. The mist in Maine has become legendary because it is so constant. It has also been a major cause for sailors crashing into shores and rocks. Now, because the mist is so dense and boats end up getting destroyed while they're inside of it, it has started a legend that there is something that hides in the mist and takes people off their ships for itself. This isn't the only time we have connected monsters to the mist. It's said that Cthulhu travels in a great mist to remain unseen. And for the number 1 spot, we have the Pamola. This creature from Native American legend is said to be the protector of the tallest mountain in Maine and possesses great power. It has been described as a cross between a human and an eagle with a great wingspan and large horns like the kind a moose has. This thing is definitely a hodgepodge of animals and is nearly impossible to get a look at. If you try to climb the mountain to try and get a look at it, it will get a sense of you before you get up there and will know you're coming. It will most likely fly away to a place where you can't see it. The legend goes even deeper and says if you are very persistent and try to find it, it will control the weather and create a storm to knock you off the mountain. At number 10, we have the Lost Dutchman's Mine. We all want to be rich so we don't have to worry about money ever again, but what are you willing to risk in order to get it? Maybe you will go in search of the missing Dutchman's mine, but I'll have you know that might be the last time anyone has ever seen you. The tale goes back all the way to the 1800s, when the land was fought over by the Native Americans and the settlers. There was a Dutch explorer by the name of Jacob Waltz who wanted to try and strike it rich. He heard there was people mining precious metals and he wanted a piece of the pie. No matter where he dug, there was nothing to be found. He heard about a mountain area that no one had tried digging. He thought he would head over there and give it a shot. However, there was a good reason why no one went looking over there. The Native Americans said the land was cursed and they wouldn't go near the place. But this didn't stop Waltz. He wanted money more than he was afraid of superstition. He went in there and guess what? He found the largest copper deposit the town had ever seen. He was becoming wealthy and other people wanted to know the location of this money hole. So they would follow him up into the mountains, but everyone who followed him would disappear, getting lost in the mountains. Some people think it could have just been poor navigation, while other people think it was the curse taking these souls. Then one day Waltz fell to his death when climbing the mountain and the location was lost forever. Will you go in search of the Dutchman's mine? I don't know, it sounds like I just gave you a quest in a video game. At number 9 we have the stranded couple. If you're driving between Ajo, Arizona and Phoenix on the 85, you might see a couple on the side of the road trying to wave you down for help. Once you pull over to help them, you'll look back and they will be gone. The ghost of a couple's been spotted several times, each time trying to get help. Legend says they were a newlywed couple driving through Arizona on their way to celebrate their honeymoon. That's so sweet. I hope nothing bad happens to them. Well, they're ghosts now, so I can promise you something bad happened to them. They crashed into a massive boulder that had rolled onto the road. This killed them both instantly. Now their spirits are stuck on the side of the highway just trying to make it to their honeymoon. That sucks. Oh my god. Imagine being in limbo for your honeymoon for the rest of your life. At number 8 we have the jackalope. Half antelope, half jackrabbit, all mystery. There's been this tale in the southern states for so long. The story of a creature that has the horns of an antelope but the body of a jackrabbit and can move faster than both. In some stories the creature is way larger than any rabbit and could gore a man in seconds. This tale has been disproven many times, but maybe this is just because people are trying to hide the creature from us. Because it's so dangerous, it needs to be kept hidden in some containment facility, because if it gets out, it could destroy an entire city. Or maybe it tastes super good, and all the global elite are hiding it from us because they don't want us to get our hands on the good little jackalope meat. I want to eat a jackalope. At number 7 we have Too Hot to Handle. We have already covered that Phoenix is in the desert and is a nice place to get away during the winter, especially if you live in Canada. But it might be too hot soon. With the increasing temperatures of climate change, some people speculate that Phoenix will soon become too hot for anyone, so if you choose to live there you'll literally get fried. Like that myth about being able to fry an egg on the sidewalk, that will become true and it would also become you. Now this is a legend because some people say this is completely false and Phoenix will be fine, but you won't catch me staying there to find out. I absolutely love the warm weather, but I like it to stop before it's cooking my insides. I mean, if it does get so hot people will die in the sun, you could go underground and live like mole people and come out at night, and then we'll have a brand new urban legend about the Phoenix mole people. Come on, maybe just do it anyways. At number 6 we have the Phoenix Lights. When an entire city sees some UFOs flying in the sky for over 14 hours, you can bet that will stir up some people. The Phoenix Lights were seen by so many people that it might be the largest UFO sighting of all time. In 1997 there was a string of 5 lights floating in the air in a V pattern that was hovering over Phoenix. The National Guard claimed that these were just flares and was part of standard training procedure, and that there was nothing to be alarmed about. But when you take a look at them, I have to say that it does not look like flares at all.
Still, she hopes to find out and hopes to keep the discussion going.
And it's time.
Those don't look like flares to me, but what do I know? I work on a YouTube channel and I have 0 military experience. Or am I actually an undercover spy? Those are really the only 2 options. But the Phoenix Lights have never been explained and every year they get brought up. Can the government just open up and tell us that aliens are real already? Come on, I'm fine with it. At number 5 we have El Chupacabra. This guy is classic. I could not leave him off the list. If you are unfamiliar with this beast, it's kind of a cross between a werewolf and a lizard and someone who really wants to ruin your budding goat farm. The name means goat sucker, and the beast sneaks into farms at night and kills farm animals by sucking on their blood until they're bone dry. You're just out here trying to make it as a small goat farmer, and this thing is messing everything up for you. The creature only comes out at night and it's said to have gray skin. In some cases it's covered in hair, in other cases it has more like snake-like skin. In all cases it's a huge jerk. It's about the size of a wolf, and if you catch him at the wrong time, it might attack you. It also has the best name of any mythical creature. El Chupacabra. El Chupacabra. chupacabra. El chupacabra. At number 4 we have Phoenix is overrun by poisonous scorpions. That sounds like a perfect place to visit. There's so many scorpions over there, you find them in your shoes the next morning and then you die. Well, let's straighten some things out. There are scorpions in Phoenix. A lot of the southern states have scorpions, and Arizona has the only poisonous scorpion in America, the Arizona bark scorpion. But stay with me, there's not an insane amount of scorpions in Phoenix, and it's super rare to die from a scorpion sting. You have a better chance of getting killed by lightning in Arizona than a scorpion sting, so don't let the little pincer bug stop you from checking out the next Cardinals game. The Mogollon Monster. Now I know the Mogollon Rim is like 2 hours outside of Phoenix, but this monster has legs, baby. It could make its way to Phoenix if it wanted to. Also, it's impossible to make an urban legends list without including some sort of monster creature, ghost lady, or creature in the lake. That's how it works. I had to do it to him. Now this beast is basically Arizona's Bigfoot. It hangs out in the Mogollon Ridge and has been spotted over 100 times. There's no clear photographic evidence, of course. What would be the fun in that? The first sighting dates back to 1908. This thing is said to have massive claws and an orange tint to its fur. It also possibly has some sort of skunk ability to release a stink cloud around it that just is brutal, because everyone who's ever come in contact with it says that this thing stinks super bad. Maybe it's just a big hairy dude who chose to live in the forest and now smells bad because he never showers. If you get into monster hunting and you want to track this thing down, it loves sweet things, baked goods, and fruit. But be careful, this creature is extremely powerful. It's basically a gorilla but much bigger. And number 2 we have Phoenix is the kidnapping capital of America. Well, that settles it. I'm not going over there. The last thing I need is someone to put a sack over my head and then have people cutting off my toes to send them to my family members because they think I have money. I have less than 100K on Instagram. I promise you, I'm not worth it. There's no water in this well. Now I've read a mix of statistics on this urban legend. There was a case study back in 2008 that said people in Phoenix were getting thrown in the back of painter vans more times than Bill Clinton flew on the Lolita Express. But that study was debunked, and now people don't know what to believe. Some people think they're just covering up how many people go missing in Phoenix so it doesn't hurt the tourism, and I don't know what to believe. But if you want to go somewhere hot and fun, you might want to go to Mexico instead. I think it might be safer. And for the number 1 spot we have Phoenix is almost out of water. Every 5 years or so the story pops up that Phoenix will run out of water soon. This has been a legend since the 70s and has started picking up steam with the climate change crisis. So far there has never been a time where there's been no water around. But that hasn't stopped the legend from being something that people are constantly worried about. I mean, it makes sense. You live in a desert. If everything goes to hell, you will be the first place to have no water. Phoenix would become some sort of Mad Max city with people riding around in makeshift cars, gunning each other down for the few liters of water they could find while yelling gasoline.